sorry. I'm trying to save Telecon and Alana.
Sure you are, just like you saved his soldier.
Jenny, we don't have time for this.
So die already!
Did you seen that? That was an excerpt of the 9-book series finale, Legacy of the Force, a clash between brother and sister adapted to a screen by a fan. Now compare it to this.
You need a teacher! I could show you the ways of the Force!
Or this. Now what is the difference between the two? One is directed by a multi-billion-dollar company with the top director assigned to the project with theoretically every actor choice possible, and the other is produced by a fan on a low budget with a director who has only done one indie feature film. And yet, the Disney fights are incomparable with this little amazing fan film. It's not about choreography, although I would argue the fan film still did the better job. So what is it about? The answer is writing, writing and writing. The key to good films. After all, movies are stories, and stories told bad are bad stories, no matter how technically good they are. Now in this video, I will not talk about what makes Star Wars sequels bad. That's something for another time, but I'm sure you've seen right now a lot of videos about it. In this video, I will talk about why you should read Star Wars Legacy of the Force, and why it's freaking amazing. So let's start without spoilers. For those who did not read it, I just want to say that Legacy of the Force is a part of larger Star Wars continuity that follows the era of the New Jedi Order and the New Republic, which includes such books as the Thrawn Trilogy, the Jedi Academy Trilogy, Aurelian Trilogy, or the Hand of Thrawn Duology. So for the new readers, I would recommend reading first Thrawn Trilogy, Jedi Academy Trilogy, and the Thrawn Duology. Then proceed to New Jedi Order, because it's absolutely essential to know the larger context. Then the Darkness Trilogy, and there you go. But wait, if it's so large, why do I say it should be the sequel trilogy? Wouldn't it miss so much material? Well, no. I think this series would perfectly work out as a trilogy, because adapted to screenplays with enough background information, well woven in flashbacks, and cutting out unnecessary subplots, it had an absolute potential to be, I would say, as good and emotionally moving as the originals, and as deep and intriguing as the prequels. And it would make people read the books that were before. Plus the original trilogy actors were in their ideal shape to play their characters again. It would be a win-win, but unfortunately we can only dream of such an amazing outcome. If only Kathleen Kennedy was more composed and didn't say that
we don't have source material.
Star Wars would be in different state now, with Timothy Zahn, Roy Denning, Christy Golden, Karen Travis, James Lucino, Matthew Stover as the Star Wars leading team of writers. Because George Lucas' story has ended, and it should continue through his fans. George said,
Right, there is no episode 7.
But when he discovered that they are making a new sequel trilogy, he wanted to continue his story, which is understandable, but then he was obviously rejected, and it was a literal lose for both fans of the EU and fans of George Lucas. So returning to the subject of Legacy of the Force, I would say as movies it would work out. But while reading, I would say still recommend to at least become familiar with the New Jedi Order books, because they are basically essential to understand better later the story of Legacy of the Force. Now imagine that you actually have Star Wars stories with likable characters, properly developed, with intriguing arcs, deeply touching philosophical and political themes, with far better world building than in the prequels, with a bit of that cheesy Star Wars humor, but actually sometimes funny, especially regarding C-3PO and R2-D2, but also far darker stories and emotionally moving climaxes without plot holes. That is what Legacy of the Force really is. Its storytelling at its very good. There are high stakes, no character is really safe, it has its flaws, obviously, especially regarding to subplots or a few confusing moments, but overall, it's a very decent piece of storytelling, and I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it to anybody who likes Star Wars. Now moving to spoilers, because I couldn't really talk much about the series without revealing something important. This will be sort of my review and partially analysis. I read it a couple of months ago and it still catches my mind to this day. Jason Solo is undoubtedly one of my favorite Star Wars characters. His arc is just fantastic. I really don't understand the criticism that his turn was not fleshed out well. He literally had like 26 novels, which in Traitor he clearly used the dark side against the Yuuzhan Vong. He was then already becoming more ruthless and cold-hearted, until he started killing. Then he just accepted that his destiny is to become a Sith Lord and save the galaxy from great evil. He was in all these novels very ambiguous. You kind of understand him, but then he's getting out of control and ruthlessly kills Boba Fett's daughter, which is very interesting theme because it kind of shows you, unlike Anakin Skywalker who wanted dark powers to save his wife, that Jason doesn't go to the dark side to become powerful. He uses dark side and strength to commit these atrocities because he believes that peace can be achieved through strength, that it is better to kill an innocent human being than to spare a dangerous criminal, which is very ambiguous, but we see where it leads. He slowly dehumanizes himself because he wants to save the galaxy. He believes that he can control himself, but then again, he behaves like Darth Vader, killing his lieutenants on Anakin Solo because of a failure. He becomes so inhuman that his sister, Jaina, sees no redemption in him, which is kind of true, but then again, when she kills him, he kind of gives his life to his daughter Alana, so theoretically there was good in him. I love how it parallels with the story of Vader, but at the same time is so different from each other, which honors George Lucas' philosophy very much and creates something original. Another thing that is controversial is retconning Verger and making her a Sith, but honestly, I don't know what the whole hum is about. I just don't mind it. People argue that it shallows Verger's character, where she just wants Jason to create a new Sith Order, but these are really just assumptions, and I don't believe it makes her character any less deep. It still doesn't change her philosophy. I think it is actually okay thing, because as much as I don't like very much this whole Grey Jedi thing, because you cannot both use dark side and light side and be in the middle, either you are good or you are evil, but Verger is something different. It's good that it's stated that she was a Sith, but it doesn't mean that she is evil, like Darth Vectivus. It's good that he is established, because it communicates to us that not every Sith is evil, and every Jedi is good. Sith and Jedi just means that when you are a Sith, you are more likely to do evil, and when you are a Jedi, you are more likely to do good, which is a great concept and doesn't contradict George's philosophy. I also really liked Boba Fett's arc. When reading one of my another favorite EU books, Bounty Hunter Wars Trilogy, we see him really only as a ruthless bounty hunter. His arc in this series really humanizes him like nothing before, and you just can't look anymore on Boba Fett the same way as before, which I love. And I love it far more than the change of Boba Fett in canon, because it stays true to this character. One of the only real criticism I have is the covers, especially the Sacrifice, with Mara Jade, because it clearly conveys what is going to happen, which I hate because it spoils everything. I also love how Legacy of the Force sort of rhymes and falls with George Lucas' original plan for the sequel trilogy. The first trilogy is about the fall of democracy. The second trilogy is about reclaiming democracy, and the third trilogy would be about preserving democracy. So the circle would be now complete. It's again the war of family. The fact that Jason Solo is Corellian and he kind of works against Corellia may symbolize that he works against himself, against his destiny, which later in the Fate of the Jedi is confirmed when he changed the current and Abeloth was freed. I also love Chief Omas and his sacrifice, and Cha Nayatal betrayal. Nayatal was like the replacement of Admiral Akbar. It was actually given time to develop, and so we could like him really much. It seemed like people in charge of Alliance drew conclusions from what happened 60 years ago with the rise of Empire and were prepared to make sacrifices in order to avoid another Sith Empire. But the fact that Colonel Solo was rising in the Galactic Alliance rankings so quickly was pretty chilling, especially when he bombarded Kashyyyk and the Wookiees, following with the Jedi Academy. It was almost like a flash when you read those books and kind of don't realize that you missed the doom and there is another galactic empire about to rise. And the message is pretty clear, that you should approach wars with clear mind, because you can doom yourself with your extremists to a totalitarian rule. That's why I think the characters of Chief Omas and Cha Nayatal were so great, because they represented everything that we the readers pretty much lacked. Or not, depending on how you view it. There's obviously that idiot Trakan Solo that wanted to use Centerpoint on Galactic Alliance, which was a great twist with that Anakin Solo droid that Ben Skywalker deactivated. And about Ben Skywalker, I think his character was very well written. The whole arc sum up would be disillusionment, where he and Jason after 6 novels become the worst enemies. He was really likable. The Luke Skywalker's surprise death was really shocking to me. I even swore while reading it, but fortunately he survived, which was also an amazing strategy for this series. It highlights his raw power. A lot of people also complained about the whole Anakin prophecy thing, and the fact that the Sith are back ruins the prophecy. I actually didn't mind it because I think there is a lot of room to play out that prophecy well in the future. Star Wars is a fantasy, and it didn't end on Legacy of the Force, or even Fate of the Jedi, so I think the prophecy could be brought back and fulfilled by Anakin as a Force Ghost. Also in George Lucas' sequels, he wanted to create the microbiotic world of the Wills, which would create more possibilities and maybe redefine Star Wars again. I think this beautiful story could end like that. I didn't read Legacy comics yet, but in my head canon, maybe, after those comics, there is so much more to it, and Anakin ultimately fulfills his prophecy, which ends with the destruction of the Sith. Again, nothing like that was written, but I just think it doesn't destroy anything. Everything can be redefined on a retcon, so for me it isn't a problem. But the biggest criticism I have to this series is the treatment of Jaina Solo. Her whole arc was really bland and not really fleshed out. She basically becomes a character after 7 novels of no involvement, which was really lame. The same problem I have with Fate of the Jedi. She doesn't really have meaningful and deep arc, which I suppose would happen in the Sword of the Jedi trilogy, but unfortunately it didn't happen and it is not going to happen. But overall the whole series was really decent and well written. I would even say better than the New Jedi Order, which is also very good, but sometimes too stretched out and boring. In Legacy of the Force, I never felt boredom, quite the contrary. I felt emotions, and it was really it. It was just amazing.